If you just take the resignation and you don't understand the why, then the other guys in the same team may be struggling with the same dynamic and the same reason that's causing him to move first.
Paul, so you mentioned about Plexus, and I can assume with that you're looking to build out a sales team. For hiring purposes or sales candidates, what would you say a sales candidate can do to stand out to you?
I'm always looking for honesty, right? Because so many CVs are, creative writing, mine included. And then even in the first interview, it's very easy to represent yourself as something perhaps you're not on the longer term when you really have to roll your sleeves up and get involved. So I run a very informal recruitment process. Like, our sales manager obviously does the CV vetting and the first interviews and actually a sales assessment before I speak to anybody. Yeah. But from my perspective, I'm always looking for a cultural fit, and across our business, it's very much work hard, play hard. Mm-hmm. So you need a sense of humour to laugh at yourself through the hard times as well as put up with my chat. But it's that fit really matters because from my perspective, I've been blessed with some of the teams that I've worked with, but at the same time, there have been one or two unsavoury characters in a fairly close-knit environment, and it's like, I'd enjoy my job a lot more if you weren't there. Not you. But hey, you know what I mean.
No, I mean, that brings up good points because I've seen, some top salespeople come and join floors before, and, they bring forward some toxicity from what they've seen in their maybe previous companies. And actually, although they're doing the numbers, like they actually broke a lot of the sales floor and the environment, the atmosphere, the culture that I think the managers took time over years to build and create, and the damage caused from that. I was privileged enough to work for another business at the time and be able to sort of witness that firsthand, that even if you've got someone who can do the numbers, has to be the right attitude still, because if he's doing the numbers and distracting everyone else or damaging everyone else's chances to go and achieve, then that's a challenge for certainly.
So to your question, like one of the other elements I look for is a degree of humility and modesty, right? I don't care how good you think you are, and good for you if you can bring those numbers, but if you're not going to be a good fit, and if your numbers are going to tear apart what we've all put many years of blood, sweat and tears into, then sorry, go and spoil somebody else's sales.
Yeah, of course.
But that said, at the moment, that'd be a nice problem to have. Like the talent just isn't out there in the market. I'm sure you guys are aware it's a very candidate-driven market at the moment, and it's actually moved our focus away from like direct, relevant experience, because our idea is very much, if you can sell, you can sell FX. And so it's those behaviours that we're looking for. And again, like it's a sign of the times. Having come out of COVID, I think the COVID element has really affected things in a number of different ways. But one is, of course, the businesses are very protective of their talent and to a degree, of course, their book. But the fallacy of I can bring a book, I don't buy into that in the slightest, nor do I want
of course not.
Hard-won client base.
It's short-windowed, isn't it? If you take them on now, well, in 2 years' time, what's stopping them from leaving and taking that same book plus whatever they've learned through working with you to your competition? So if you've got someone with that professionalism, they're likely to return the favour down the line, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so much more interested in somebody who can build a book than bring a book.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Because anybody purporting to, I can bring a book, it's like, 20% maybe. The rest are actually trading via you with the brand that built the service and the business that you represent. So there's always that kind of, ego check when somebody jumps ship and tries to take their book, and a lot of their client base like, yeah, you were nice, phoning me every Monday and asking me how my weekend was. You didn't really care. I didn't really care in the answer either. But that's not an ethos that we buy into. So we're looking for the behaviours and the kind of the character that really adds value to what we're building. So,
and you can teach everything else, can't you?
Look, yes, absolutely. I'm long enough in the tooth to be able to teach anybody to sell FX, but where I am very time poor is why we've invested in a sales manager, and between his his focus and his own experience and the experience of the wider team, we do believe that we can train the next wave of brokers. But that was the other point I was going to make about COVID. You know, the outfits that were traditionally very good at training new graduates, that whole piece almost seems to have fallen away from the market over the past couple of years. And because it was that much harder to do remotely in lockdown and through the COVID periods. And then when it all got back to normality, a lot of the businesses were focused, rightly so, on preserving what they've got and getting a good grip on the new reality of the client base, of the staffing levels. Rather than going, right, let's get 50 grads in this and go through that whole process again. And so I think there is a bit of a talent glut in the market, because typically those were the guys who would go through the training regime, bang out all the calls, hate their life for a year, but then come out with a little bit of experience and go, yeah, do you know what, I am good enough for a job somewhere else. And then the whole process and the career ladder starts. But without that entry point, then we're looking for a needle in a haystack.
It's refreshing to hear, because I think 2 or 3 years ago, when we first started Fintech-Rec, everyone was looking for only FX experience, only someone from industry. It wasn't an attitude hire, it was very much, let's look at the experience. So we would be mitigating many hires on, let's say, someone who's had 3 jobs in 3 years, so they've proven 3 times that they can't do the job effectively. That's what, from my experience, tells me, traditionally, that's what we're looking at. You can't tarnish with the same brush, but you can start picking up on trends in recruitment, so it's refreshing to see businesses today, particularly on the back end of the pandemic, coming out of it and, offering better opportunity for people.
But that's an interesting one. I mean, obviously that's a massive red flag of, like, why did you only stay there a year?
Yeah.
Was it attitude? Was it performance? Was it whatever? But similarly, I apply that to anybody in sales, because, I have a personal belief that you never get rid of a performing salesman. And so if my top biller came to me, said, I'm leaving, and he was just banging out new every month and growing the business base, my first question is like, what have we got to do to keep you? Because it's so much easier and probably cheaper in the long term to give him 10, 15, 20% of whatever he needs. Maybe not commission, but...
So your staff might be watching this,
It's an open book. It's a very transparent process that we run. But yeah, I would much rather sit down and engage with talent and go, what can we do? Like, why? Why are you looking to leave? Because if you just take the resignation and you don't understand the why, then, the other guys in the same team may be struggling with the same dynamic and the same reason that's causing him to move first. So it's very much a case of, what is it? What can we do to keep the band together, really? And then, so I'm always a little bit cynical of, you're a top biller, you're a really good sales, so why are you leaving?
Yeah. We do see that quite a lot, where you have conversations with people and they're happy in their role, but they still obviously will quite happily have a chat. But it's one of those things, good people are generally looked after well. It's the people that are always continuously looking year after year, who come back on.
As they say, people don't leave salaries, they leave managers, don't they? All too often you see people leave their jobs. It's not because they're not being paid enough. It's because they're not earning the respect. They may have been there for a certain period of time and thought they're going to be here, and they're not. They're still here, and that's why people tend to start looking elsewhere. It's why we've got to look out for those that are still in 3 jobs in 3 years, because there are occasions where you've got good talent and they've just been mismanaged. But ultimately, I think general rule of thumb is you want to see consistency, you want to see good attitudes, and that's first seen in the CV before you even had the conversation.
But I think there's a lot to be said. I mean, we've talked about it in the past about headhunting talent. Generally, if I engage with a recruiter and they go, oh yeah, I've got 5 amazing CVs ready for you, it's like, I don't want to see them. I want to tell you about what I'm looking for, the DNA, and then I want you to go and find somebody who's already in work.
Rather than interviewing 5 of the same people your competitors are interviewing.
Because, what I firmly believe that what we're doing is materially different to any other FX shop out there. No disrespect to the big brands, but it is, like, fundamentally what we're doing isn't being done anywhere else. Now that may just be enough of a seed for somebody who's very good and very loyal to one of the incumbent big brands to go, yeah, actually I do want to take a step down in terms of the size of the brand that I represent, but arguably a step up in the service or the product or or the tech or the development or any of these other touch points that we bring to that contract between employer and employee. And so that's what I like to focus on. It's like, let's engage with somebody who is perfectly happy in their job and see if we can tease them over to the other side. Not to the dark side, just the other side.